all of a sudden I sensed something going on my side, and there was a guy, a Vietnamese soldier, trying to climb up on the back deck. He didn't see me. I don't know why he didn't see me. I saw him. He had a stick grenade and a tank grenade in his left hand, and he had a Tokarev 7mm pistol in his right hand. I left my 45 on the vein sight. And so I was looking at him. He looks up at me, sees me. I just sidekicked him as hard as he could. His gun goes off as he's flying back. The round hit the bustle rack and came back and got me in the shoulders.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served Warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Today we have a unique combat story where we hear about the armored cavalry in Vietnam from then Platoon Leader with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, Kent Hillhouse. Kent would go on to retire as a Major General in the U.S. Army Reserve and has continued to support veterans, leading his community's Veterans Memorial and Support Foundation of Los Gatos. Many will likely be surprised to learn that we had tanks in Vietnam, given how the war has so frequently been depicted as a fight by infantrymen in the jungles. Kent's first-hand accounts of commanding an M48 platoon from 1967 to 1968 provide an inside look at the way these tanks were employed, leveraged, and targeted. In this episode, we get into battling for your reputation, pushing through complex ambushes, near-death experiences, trusting and leaning on your NCOs, the responsibility of command, and never giving up. With that, please enjoy this amazing piece of history as we look at the age and employment of tanks in Vietnam with retired Major General Kent Hillhouse. Sir, thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us and share your story.
Good to be here.
So I wanted to start off, I had the fortune of getting a chance to see an interview with you and Joe Galloway, who I think many people who listen to this will know from We Were Soldiers fame. Hal Moore and Joe Galloway writing We Were Soldiers Once and Young, and of course the movie that I think many have seen. And you got to sit down with Joe. So I thought it might be interesting. And I feel my own sense of insecurity trying to interview you after someone like Joe has. So I was hoping you could share how you got to know Joe and what that was like.
Well, Joe Galloway was a friend of John Swinson, who is a retired lieutenant colonel, West Point type infantryman, served in Vietnam, a couple of tours, and actually worked with the Army to put together their version of Top Gun, which was a movie about helicopters.
Firebirds. I think.
Firebirds.
Sadly, did not do the way Top Gun did.
You got to get Tom Cruise over there, I guess. But anyway, I met Galloway originally, had a lunch with him, at AUSA type lunch over at the college, West Valley College, junior college. And guy is just a very personable guy, great personality. He likes to talk. He's a good Irishman. Likes his beer, and obviously we got on the subject of the eye drang a few times. When he went in on a helicopter just after they had put the first couple of companies on the ground, basically he didn't have the ability to do a lot of filming and so forth because they handed him a rifle and they were fighting for their lives for 3 days, getting overrun and this and that. So he is the only reporter, I'm told, in the whole Vietnam War to receive the Bronze Star for Valor, receive an award for valor, or much less a Bronze Star. So the guy did a great job. He ended up being in the Pentagon as their head of their the military corresponding corps, and he put together the program for War I. That would be the program where they embedded press with different units, Marine and Army infantry units. And the Army was really touchy after Vietnam because the press had just gone wild there, misreporting things and so on. I think we all understand how that worked. So he put that program together, and he's well respected in the military community. And at one of the luncheons, he brought some of the guys in. I'm bad on memory on names, but one of the guys he brought in was a radio announcer, a famous radio announcer up in San Francisco. He was the guy who had been wounded. If you read the book, I'm not sure it was in the movie or not, but they set up the North Vietnamese set up an RPD light machine gun on his dead body, and as a result of that, he lost all the hearing in his right ear because he couldn't move. They'd probably killed him. But so there, a lot of stories came from knowing Joe, and I'm probably forgetting half of the stuff I learned from the guy. But he was a fun guy. He's up for a presidential medal, gold medal. I'm not sure where that is right now, but he died, I think, 6 or 7 months ago, heart attack. So good man, and great, fun guy to be around.
Well, before we started recording, you mentioned a side note on Platoon, the movie, and I was hoping we could also touch on that.
Took place supposedly between August of 67 and August 68, because that was when Oliver Stone was PFC in the 25th Infantry Division. He was kind of writing about his experiences. And when I looked at the movie, and they had, killing civilians, sergeants killing sergeants, purposely, murder, not fratricide, but actual murder, taking drugs in the units. These are the kinds of things that did not happen. And the line units, which represents maybe 9.5% of the Army, you're fighting for your life out there. If a PFC's in a foxhole with another one and he tries to smoke a rope, he's going to get his rear end kicked. It just didn't happen. And it did happen on Long Bend Post, where there was 100,000 guys stationed there, and they were secured, no weapons issued. They were secured by MPs, and they provided the logistics for all of 3 Corps, I think 4 Corps, 3 Corps, maybe even further up, I don't know. But at any rate, Galloway invited me to go to a lunch. He told us about a lunch he had put together with Oliver Stone and his company commander, his real company commander, and the unit he served in the 25th Infantry Division. And they were talking away about this and that. And towards the end, Galloway, who's kind of likes to stir the pot a little bit, asked the company commander, "So tell me, what was the most realistic part of the movie Platoon, in your opinion?" And the company commander was kind of put on the spot a little bit, but he thinks about it for a little while, and then he says, "Well, it rained a lot." So at any rate, I felt a little bit redeemed. But people go see these movies and they believe them.
Yeah.
And so I was disappointed in that movie.
I'm curious what your thoughts on the movie We Were Soldiers. I don't know if you remember seeing that one, but how it's portrayed. How did you feel on that?
Well, that was filmed down at Hunter Liggett, so the terrain wasn't like it was in Vietnam. But and I think that they basically tried to make it feel right. I read the book slowly. I took it in.
Yeah.
And it was a great book. And Hal Moore participated in the writing of that book. He was the battalion commander on the ground, later retired as a lieutenant, a 3-star lieutenant general. And Hal Moore commanded the 7th Light Division at Fort Ord when they cranked Fort Ord up. And I had joined a reserve unit at that time. The 91st Division serviced it represented all the reserve units in Northern California. Down and controlled Hunter Liggett, and also as far north, we had units in Redding and different places around the Northern California area. And my brigade commander, here I was a lieutenant in a company, a training officer, and my brigade commander called me into his office and said, "I want you to be my aide." Well, colonels don't. On paper, don't get AIDS, but what are you going to say, right?
Yeah.
So, at any rate, a couple of weeks later, we had an invite by Hal Moore to go down to a dining in at Fort Ord in the Officers Club, and the deal was my brigade commander served under Hal Moore. He was a lieutenant. Hal Moore was a company commander, a captain in Korea. These are the guys who invented fugas, which is where they took 55-gallon drums and filled them up with stuff, basically gasoline and oil, ignited them, sent them down the hill when these Chinese were coming up the hill. They were just madmen in Korea. And I heard a lot of stories about Korea from my platoon sergeants in Vietnam. And from a weather standpoint, I'm glad I never served in Korea. That was brutal. I'll take the heat any day. But Hal Moore was a wild man. There came a time at some point after the booze was flowing, and it had one NCO at the table with us. And NCOs normally don't go to dining ins and dining outs; it's an officer's function. But he was the sergeant major at Fort Ord, and he also served as the sergeant major of the battalion in the I Drang. So
wow, Hal just brought him with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So now here they are, and it's the booze is flowing, and all of a sudden he's up on top of a table. They're singing Gary Owen, and they got the yellow flags going. The cavalry, they use the red and white flags.
Yeah.
But during the Civil War, they were yellow flags because the cavalry had the blue uniforms with the yellow stripes on them, and that was the deal. But at some point in one of the battles, I can't remember which one, a transportation unit, which used more of a brown type flag, was moving across a line in front of units in contact with the enemy forces. And a general up there with glasses was looking down, and he sees this transportation units moving across, and the yellow flags would just turn brown too from the dust and everything. And he thought it was a cavalry unit. And he turned them into the lines, and they were basically destroyed. So at that point, during the Civil War, they came up with a red and white flag, and that's the history of the flag.
Interesting.
In fact, when I left Vietnam, they gave me a flag that's so big, but it's the standard issue cavalry flag, and put my name on it and the unit and so forth. And it's kind of has a reddish tone in the white area because of the Vietnam had that red mud, kind of like Georgia, But,
Yeah. So my first unit, I was in a cav unit in Germany, in fact. So we had the Stetsons, we had the Spurs, and this was a unit that had just redeployed from Iraq, but I had not gone with them, so I had just arrived. So I got indoctrinated into that cav experience and loved it. And my older brother, in fact, was an armor officer pre 9/11. So I've learned all of the lineage there, but I've never heard that story about the colors of it.
Well, when I went through Fort Knox, which was now it's Benning, but the home of armor. Now it's Moore, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Named it after Hal Moore. The name changed. Well, at Knox, the first thing I noticed on all the license plate, the thing that surrounds it is, if you ain't cav, you ain't shit.
You ain't shit. That's right. I'm pretty sure my brother has one too.
So that's you're getting. I mean, these guys they teach you to be aggressive.
About you've mentioned California quite a bit. You're homegrown here in this state, right?
Yeah.
Could you talk just a little bit about where did you grow up in California, and what is that kind of pushed you into the armor side of things?
Well, I was born in Weed Patch, which is a suburb of Bakersfield, and that's where you pull up to the gas pump and roll the window down a little bit and keep the air conditioner on full blast and tell them to fill it up, and then you get the hell out of there as fast as you can. But my dad, we lived in Burbank basically.
Okay.
I was born. My mom was from Bakersfield or that area. She was born to a cotton farmer. They had a big cotton farm, and she had friends up there, and she was a nurse. And in fact, my middle name is Hayden, Heade, and that's the name of the doctor that delivered me. But I was born in 1944, and my dad worked at Lockheed. I think he really wanted to go in. He'd gone down past the physical to go into Navy aviation type thing. My brother had already been born. He was born in 42, and I wasn't there to see how the bricks fell, but somewhere or another she convinced him to stay out of the service, but because he had a deferment with Lockheed. Okay. And then in 52 or late 51, we were transferred to the Marietta Division. And we lived in Georgia, okay. And we lived in a small town called Smyrna, which is between Atlanta. It's right off of Marietta. It's a town of about 2,000, all dirt roads, except for the main road, 41, Route 41 going through town. The school was 1 through 12.
Wow.
And I guess it was second grade. I came to school. We flew across country in a DC-6, I think. And it was one of these things where you fly from LA to San Diego to Phoenix to Santa Fe to Fort Worth to New Orleans to Birmingham to Atlanta, a 13-hour flight. And we flew lower than 10,000 feet the whole way. I'm not sure they were pressurized or what the deal was, but remember the cockpit door was open the whole time. There was a big axe hanging on the back of the door for a fire axe, which impressed my brother and I. And so when we strolled up to the cockpit once they were in the air, and the pilots invited us, come on in. The co-pilot gets out of his seat, and we both get to sit in the co-pilot's seat. And they were wearing their World War II A2s. I think they were probably bomber pilots during the war. But it was a fun flight, and the stewardesses were really nice, and it was just a long day.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So go to show up a class, and they always had the school, Smyrna School, always had a meeting. They had an American flag on a staff there, and on the wall, you saw the movie Patton.
Yeah.
The big American flag. They made they had a stars and bars on the wall, a Confederate battle flag. Okay. I didn't know what that was, but that's what was on the wall. So then you start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Then there's the Star Spangled Banner, and then they sing. There's a prayer, and it's mixed in there, and then they sing Dixie. Welcome to the South.
You were in the South, yeah.
And again, I didn't understand the meaning at second grade. But I started to understand a few things when I went to recess, and I was surrounded by all these guys. Well, where are you from? California. Well, where's that? Of course, I didn't know where California was. Yeah, I knew I was from there, but at any rate, then they asked, "Are you a Yankee or a rebel?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. The Yanks are coming. Oh, I'm a Yankee. Well, trust me, 30 seconds later, I became a rebel.
Is there something else, another option?
Yeah, exactly. But it was interesting it was my formative years.
Yeah.
You go to the local Sinclair station. You had the men, women, colored restrooms. You had white and colored drinking fountains. So it was segregation in its full bore.
Did you end up having any black soldiers in your unit in Vietnam?
We did. Well, I went in the Army. When I did go in the Army, they had a lot of blacks. And they were treated, they were a part of the Army. I was a part of a team. The Army, the biggest thing about the Army, and I'll come up with one example. When I went to ROTC and went to our 6-week summer camp, we went to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Yeah, as did I. They
had the old World War II. They still have the old World War II at Wood up there. That's the 2-story hangouts.
I think I also slept in that.
Did you go to Lewis?
Same one. Yep.
So at that time, it was bunk beds, 44 to a floor, and there's a latrine at the end of the floor, and there was 6 latrines, no separators between each toilet, 6 shower heads in a shower, a urinal, and 6 sinks, and there's 44 guys in there taking care of business. No one's reading the sports page on the can. You can trust me. So, the Army wanted everybody to be a team, and that's one way to start the process.
That's true.
And I'll tell you, the Hispanic and the black NCOs were unbelievably good. They saw opportunities in the military that the military offered, and part of those opportunities was to advance in rank and salary and get a better retirement, and great guys.
And based on merit.
Yeah, based on merit, exactly.
Which is a big difference. Where does cavalry or the tanks come up for you? Is it while you're in ROTC, or was there a glimmer in there in high school?
Well, I did see him when we went through that 2-day process at summer camp where they introduce you to the different branches. I was focusing on the Medical Service Corps.
Interesting.
Because, San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, the nurses were there. I was a San Jose State guy, and it was a big party school at the time. It's a different story, but at any rate, I applied for Medical Service Corps and was accepted. And
something clearly happens, because that's not what you end up doing, right?
That was in June of 66.
Okay.
And in July of 66, I get a call from the professor of military science at San Jose State and says, Hillhouse, you've been bounced out of the Medical Service Corps. All the direct commission guys got those slots. Politicians' sons, most likely, whatever it was like in those days. I didn't think about Vietnam too much. I probably thought of Vietnam as probably more of an adventure kind of thing. I didn't toss away the idea that I didn't want to go there or anything. But I didn't really think about it too much.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I had to reapply, and you have to reapply for, you have 3 options, and one has to be a combat arms option. At that time, aviation was not an option. You get to the different Medical Service Corps would be one, you fly for, maybe transportation corps.
Mhm.
But at any rate, it was in those days. It was armor, infantry, artillery, maybe engineers. I can't remember. They are now, but
Yeah.
so I'm thinking to myself, yeah, they don't use tanks in Vietnam. I'll just put tanks down, armor. So I got my orders, and I was ordered for the armor branch.
And I guess I jumped past this, but what was the discussion like, if any, for joining ROTC in the Army with your family, talking to your parents, anything like that?
Well, the school was a land grant school, San Jose State. All the state schools were land grant school up until '64. So you had part of that deal was you had to be in ROTC for the first couple of years. Then the draft was going strong. Guys were getting drafted, and uh, I definitely signed up for upper division ROTC. In fact, I had a little bit of a problem my lower division years, and I did manage to make it through in 4 years. But my problem was I belonged to a fraternity, and had to work. Our family didn't have that much money, so I had to. Although our school, I think it was $47 a month, a year. Excuse me, a semester. $47 a semester for tuition. All 4 years I was there, and I worked at the school library. I worked at Palm Pharmacy. I did different things, and in the summer, I worked in the canneries. Every so often, my dad could give me a summer job at Lockheed, which was better money, but you didn't do anything at Lockheed. In canneries, you had to. I'd only get the swing shift jobs because that's all I could get.
So you were working when you're doing
You got
that.
to work, yeah.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I let my grades go, and by the time I was in my third semester, I called in by my advisor I'd never met before. Says I can't recommend you for upper division.
Wow.
You're under 2.0 average, which I kind of knew, but I just wasn't doing the school thing. And so I explained to him, if I don't go up a division, I can't stay in ROTs and I'll get drafted. What if I get a 3-point every semester the rest of my time in college? And he said, I'll be monitoring you, but I'll approve that. So I got pushed up to second division, to upper division, and I maintained an above 3-point average, which barely got me a 2.0 to graduate. So, but at any rate, I was a little worried there for a little while.
Wanting to avoid getting drafted, basically.
If you're going to go in,
a little control.
Yeah, you want to go in a leadership type position, which I had no concept of what leadership was, but at the time anyway.
One of the things, just foreshadowing, can we talk briefly about your experience throwing or not throwing grenades in ROTC?
Well, the grenade scared the hell out of me. They demonstrated the grenade. The M26 wasn't like the old pineapple. That thing had a bursting radius on it. It was a very effective, I think it was a 15 meter bursting radius on it. It was just a nasty. And then they tell you, well, there's a 4-second fuse on it, and you're thinking, what if the guy had a fight with his wife the night before and fell asleep at the switch, or doesn't like the war? You heard stories from World War II where the guys in the concentration camps were screwing over the Nazis, which was nice. But that bothered me. So when we got on the line to throw the grenades, we threw the grenades all the time, inert grenades in PT. The PT test was different in those days.
I did not know this until I was doing some homework, that there's a grenade throwing portion back in the day.
Yeah, so I liked the PT test except for the grenade throw, because it was not something you could control. And I'll tell you, first of all, it was the run, it was the overhead bars, it was low crawl, something else, and the grenade throw. I would always max all 5 of them. And then I got to the grenade throw, and either you'd land in the middle, then it would roll out, or something would happen. So sometimes it would force me to it would screw up my PT scores. So at any rate, when I went on active duty, or when we went on a live range, I said in ROTC, I just kind of stayed at the back of the line, kind of worked myself close, and they didn't pay attention. I never threw a live grenade until I got to Vietnam.
Yeah. When am I going to have to throw this?
And from a leadership standpoint, at summer camp, the most important thing, there's 3 important things, in my opinion, for my time frame. This is 1965. One was you had to do well on rifle marksmanship. We had the M1, and we fired KD ranges, known distance ranges, out to 800 yards, and they had a peep sight on that thing, and most people hit at 800 yards. That was a great rifle, great weapon. And then the second thing was the PT test, and I was feeling good about that because I could usually max it, except for that damn grenade throw. And then the third thing was the one day you had a leadership position as a platoon leader. And we had this platoon sergeant, we'd always be messing with him. For example, we had the platoon wimp, the guy who gets picked on the most, was sitting in between the platoon sergeant and the driver on a deuce and a half. We're in the back, and someone reaches up and grabs his helmet. And they pass it back, and he's, give me my helmet, give me my helmet. And finally, the platoon sergeant yells back, give him his helmet now. So they pass it back up, on the way up, some guy empties his canteen, hands it up to him, and the kid doesn't even notice. He puts it on, water splashes on the platoon sergeant and the driver. So we get back, and it's we had done the night obstacle course, so it was late. Mm-hmm. We get back, he puts us out there doing a mile run. Now it's like 12 o'clock. And the only, besides running the formation, which was not a problem from a leadership standpoint, but cleaning, you have to clean the barracks up. So you always do it at night, so you're ready to go. You just top things off, and you're good to go. Mm-hmm. Well, we're all beat to hell, and the guy said, well, we'll just get up in the morning and do it. Don't worry. Come on, let's just hit the rack. And that's what we did, and we didn't get the thing squared away. And I got called in by our guy, and it was named Begibing. He was a Stanford ROTC instructor, a major. And he says, Hillhouse, if it wasn't a war going on, I'd just kick your ass out right now. You are a worthless POS, right?
Wow.
And the follow-on to that story is that I ran into him in the reserves. He became an advisor as a full colonel to our reserve unit in our MTC, which is, we did testing of units there. Which I was a part of at some point in time. And I go into his office. I said, you remember me? I was a major at the time. He said, no. I told him who I was and what he said to me. And so I said that to all the guys, which I don't think he did. But I learned from that.
It sounds like it. I should say, for the kids listening, you can have the 2.0 and do these things and still become a general as you go on to become. So how long after ROTC and graduating from college do you find yourself in Vietnam?
Well, first there's Knox for AOB, Armor Officer Basic Course, which I think was 3 months, but they add a little bit more on to get your cavalry MOS. Okay. So I was a 1203 and 1204, and then ultimately another one, a PSYOPs thing.
Oh, yeah.
But at any rate, so I was there from August till December of 66.
Okay.
Then I had orders to go to the JFK Center at Fort Bragg. And they didn't really know what to do with an armor officer.
Why did you have those orders, though?
I never figured that out. I don't know. Because I was the only armor officer there. And I got there, and I learned from AOB and ROTC, you listen to the NCOs. Yeah. And that's what I did for a week and a half. And then he told the chief of staff when they got back, Hillhouse did a good job. He's a good guy. So the chief of staff calls me and says, what do you want? You're on orders to go to airborne school, but that's not till the end of January. So what do you want to do for the next 3.5 weeks? And I said, well, I'd like to go to that weapons course you guys have, which you get to play with every weapon in the military across the world from, I think it was from 1880 till 1966. You get to play with them, take them apart, put them back together. If right, we could shoot. If they're in action still, like an AK-47. First time I saw an AK, you get to shoot them and that type of thing. So that was a fun deal. And
it's great.
And then they put me in a PSYOPs unit, and there was a big CONARC operation being planned, or actually had been decided they were going to do it. CONARC was the old Forces Command today. Okay. And they take care of all the services. So it was a combined arms, Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force program. And it was a mock invasion of Cuba. And the invasion point was Vieques Island. And I can remember we practiced, well, first of all, we were doing we were doing all the work, the writing for the military side of the operation. Um, and we had to go into the top secret files to develop where the commo nodes were, where the dams were, where the electricity power nodes were, everything that we would attack on day one. And so that was almost a 6-week process. They had you in those blockhouses with the fences around them and guards. And I can remember I'd get up there early, and I've always been an early riser. And I was sitting in this room by myself, looking at some documents, and the door opens, and this corporal looks in there. He says, "Hey, empty the trash." And he slams the door and he leaves. I said, "What the guy's doing? I'm a lieutenant. He's not supposed to be doing that. I'm still a new guy, right?"
Yeah.
And so then I'm sitting there working away, and about 20 minutes later, he says, "I said," he comes in, "take out the fucking trash. Do it now." And then he leaves again. Then I realized I hadn't put in my bars. So I picked the trash up and took it out, but went over to the PX and bought some new bars. But
you look like a private, basically.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So this was short-lived. You kind of do this training.
Did that, and they put us over the 82nd Airborne to do some jumps.
Okay.
I went in with a 12-man team, and well, first of all, I went to airborne school. And you've been to airborne school, I think?
Yep.
Okay. And of course, you fall out of any physical activity, they bounce you out. And so by week 2, you're invested.
Yeah.
And we had about 200 guys in the class, and we had 6 officers, I think. We had a captain and a first lieutenant who lived on Fort Bragg, married, families, and they didn't get to use the boot shiners over in the officers' quarters. They have these guys come out, and for $1 they'll spit shine your boots for you. And everybody had the airborne boots, Cochrane's, except these 2 guys who didn't get it.
They had help at home.
But they were having a little. They weren't in shape. I mean, I ran track in school, and the guys just out of OCS were in great shape. On the second week is Tower Week, and they were introducing the 36-foot tower, 38-foot tower, whatever it is. And you jump out and slide down a wire to a berm. So they're saying this is another leadership thing that I learned. They said, first of all, they demonstrated the tower. And then, and we'd been doing PLFs the week before and all the stuff, the swings and all that stuff. Although we did more of the swings on week 2, the Tower Week. That's the ball buster. Yeah. So at any rate, they said, we need 4 volunteers. And as you know, these guys were all infantry guys, 6 months already through basic and advanced infantry. We need 4 guys to volunteer. And we know you guys don't want to volunteer. You know how it works. But these are the only, as you know, everybody double times out here, and you're the only guys that don't have to double time. Now, come on, guys, give me some arms. And so 4 guys, raise their arms. He says, as I said, you guys don't have to double time. You're going to do the ropes, and you're going to have to sprint. So when we'd go down the wire, they'd grab the carry-ons and bring them back up to the tower. So after about 45 minutes, these kids are getting tired out there. And one of the OCS guys says, we ought to go. I wish I'd thought about it. We ought to go replace them. Everybody agreed to it. We all were in good shape, except the lieutenant and the captain. No, they're okay.
They're good.
So we're going to go. So we went up, released them. The black hats, the instructors, didn't say anything. So we ran ropes for about 45 minutes, and then they told us to get back in the formation and continue training. Well, the next day, they come by, they inspect you in line, the officers, and there's no rank. In that time, they didn't wear rank in airborne school. I don't know how they did it when you were in.
Can't remember.
So at any rate, they knew who we were. So they go right by us, and they get to the lieutenant and captain, and they start giving all kinds of crap. And then they got them on the swings. They ran them out by the end of the week.
Jeez.
And
it's a good lesson.
And we were thinking to ourselves, they don't want to go to combat with douchebags like these guys,
Yeah.
So that's all the way through my military training career. You pick up stuff like that.
You do.
The military is good about teaching you to learn how to act, and you learn your own leadership lessons.
That's true. and just taking care of people. I mean, I don't think anybody does it like the military does.
I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of stories to tell about that. But
Well, let's jump to Vietnam. At the time, are you married by that point in your life? Okay,
no.
so you're
I'm engaged when I leave for
all
Vietnam.
right. Wow.
And I'm engaged to an 18-year-old girl. I'm 21. And there's something about when you start thinking about going to war about, I got to leave something behind here, you know.
Might not be coming back.
And she was we both politically were kind of alike, and, you know, and she was in love and I was in love, and, you know, how that works. But
it's one less thing to worry about when you're
I actually went through two marriages. I'm married for 25 years to my wife now, and she's a keeper, but I was a little distracted and a little off key. And when I got out of the Vietnam, I wasn't myself really. But anyway, we got married in R&R. That's another story too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that was an eventful year. Engaged, war. Well, can you give us an idea of where you're based for the war? What unit you end up rotating into? What's your introduction to Vietnam like?
Well, I flew over there on a TWA charter flight out of Travis.
Okay.
And that was pretty common, flying on charter flights, TWA, American, different United, I guess. All of them did it. It turns out I flew all the time on TWA. I didn't have a choice. It's just the way it worked out. 707s. And we flew to Hawaii, to Guam, and they like to fly you in at night. So they couldn't zero in on with their mortars, I guess. I don't know exactly why, but they double time you off, and they double time guys on, and they leave. And then you're kind of, I took a Walther PPK with me to Vietnam, but it turns out I hated that thing because it would clip you right here. I don't know if you ever fired a Walther PPK, but it was a cool gun because James Bond had one.
Yeah.
And wasn't very accurate either. And my XO loved that thing, and he traded me a 5-shot snubby 38 special, which I gave to my gunner, but he liked it.
Okay.
But at any rate, that's how we landed on Bien Hoa Airfield. They opened the doors, and the plane just filled up with heat and the smell of I'll call it a fourth world country smell. Yeah. And got off, and I'm thinking to myself, man, a year of this.
And it's August. Is it August you arrive?
Yeah, August.
August. Okay, so it's hot.
And they picked us up at the 90th Repo Depot, which is where they took you to, and then that's where they took your orders and called your unit, and they'd come pick you up. And my unit was stationed at Black Horse. It's a new base camp. They built it. They'd been there for about 6 months. The unit got in country a year before August. And then they were rotating out as a unit, not as individuals, but they didn't. That's when they started the program. They started moving people around, and so a lot of our guys in my unit got sent over to the 4th Infantry Division. Oh. About half the guys in my company the officers were sent over to and became infantry platoon leaders. We could become infantrymen, but they couldn't become cavalrymen because they didn't have the expertise of the vehicles. So the 11th Cav was a regimental cavalry unit. So regimental Cav, unlike divisional Cav units, was like a light infantry brigade. It was self-contained. We had our own aviation, had our own mobile 155 M109 artillery with each squadron. A squadron was like a battalion, and the three squadrons were set up the same, and we were 2nd Squadron, so we were EFG troops, and then H company. Company's like a troop, but it was only 100 guys plus a sport tail, maybe 120 guys. And so I was assigned to 2nd Squadron, and they immediately told me 2nd Squadron station up on the DMZ, and you're going to have to go up there. And I'm sitting there, now this is not looking too good. But then I realized they didn't know what they were talking about. They just assumed I Corps was the DMZ. We were stationed, our trains area was in Chulai, which is a long ways from the DMZ. In fact, it's about as far as you can get before you go into 2 Corps. So our unit was a part of Task Force Oregon, which was the predecessor to the 23rd Infantry Division, the Miracal. And their purpose was to form up a division. So we were the cavalry component, and then first of the first cav relieved us.
Okay.
And then we went back, and in 2.5 months later, we were relieved, and we went back, took the LSTs down to 3 Corps and rejoined our regiment, our squadron.
Can you speak to the task organization within that squadron at the time? And just for reference, for people who are listening, we recently interviewed a gentleman named Tim Gauthier, who was in the Battle of 73 Easting in Desert Storm. It's tank-on-tank battle. And also a cavalry troop led by H.R. McMasters.
I know H.R. I had sat next to him a few times at lunch, and he supports us in our foundation. Wow. He's a great guy.
I had just studied that battle for so long. So talking to a gentleman, he was a platoon leader at the time, in fact, the guy who I was interviewing. So people have heard a little bit of the task organization in the 90s. What was it like? What type of tanks, armor personnel carriers, what were you assigned with in that squadron?
So the company was all tanks, 17 tanks. And then what they do is I OPCON 2 of the platoons out to two of the 3 different ACAV units, troops. ACAV would be an M113 armored personnel carrier made at FMC, set up with a turret and a 50 caliber in the front, and then 2 side mounted M60s, which were armor protected, had plates in front of them. And so they had a grenadier on board. We had some infantrymen and a driver, a TC, track commander. I was a TC, but it was tank commander, but they were track commanders.
Okay.
Good vehicles, and they could swim. They had a swim board on them.
These are 113s.
113s.
What were the tanks at that time?
M48 A3s. Okay. A3 was diesel.
All right.
And I've never figured out why this is, but they had a bathtub-shaped bottom, which translates to when you hit a mine, it's not going to bother you too much. It rides up, blows the tracks off. Tank may or may not be combat lost, but nobody gets killed.
Okay. Unlike
an M1, which is a flat bottom, or the M60, which is a flat bottom. They came out with that AMRAP vehicle. That's got the bathtub-shaped bottom on it to deflect the blast. So we didn't have a lot of problems. We had a lot of mines, but the only casualty I had when we hit a mine was the driver who failed to secure his hatch, the lower hatch, the escape hatch, and it blew up into him. And he was out for about a week and a half. And I'll guarantee you he never failed to secure that hatch.
You learn. They teach you how to learn.
But it was a good vehicle. Okay. The M48 had a 90 millimeter gun on it. And we carried 64 rounds of ammunition. And most of it was canister rounds.
Okay.
And then we had some HE rounds for bunkers, and then we didn't carry heat rounds for anti-tank rounds, but we did carry 2 Willie Peter, 2 white phosphorus rounds, which we planned to use against a tank if we ever came across one. And this is before they had the PT-76 incident up at Ben Het. In Ben Het, they called it a tank battle because it was M48s against PT-76.
Interesting.
Which has a 76 millimeter gun on it. It's not as deadly or lethal. Had thin skin.
Huh.
But we'd never seen T-54s or T-55s south at that point.
Had you fired any of the main gun rounds when you were at Knox? Did you get much time on the range then?
Yeah, we spent one day on the range.
So maybe you fired 10 times?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. Wow.
But of the 64 rounds, probably 20 in ready racks, 20 more standing up, and then 20 in the honeycombs. And you had to turn the turret all the way around to access the honeycombs. So you tried not to do that. But did that. And then I can remember in firing a lot of times we had 3-man crews. And whose position was the most important but least in need in this type of situation? It was the gunner. So the gunners were all capable, and they all could be tank commanders. And we usually farm them out to be tank commanders or short-term tank commanders until a E6 showed up to be a tank commander. So, and if there was no gunner, then I would fire the gun, and I had an override with the cupola and the cupola.
Mm-hmm.
And I used the vane sight, which is right at sitting on top of the. And I can send you a couple of pictures.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, we'll include that so people can kind of get an idea. What does that look like? If you could
It's just
describe
like
it.
a box kind of thing, and you look through it, and it's got an Amy point on it. And so, we took like an old tire tread and track, or the inside of the tire, like it stretches like a rubber band. The tire, it's not an actual tire, but anyway, we'd stretch them across the cupola and put our maps under it. And I put my 45 under it to just keep it there handy. I put the tops in there that I had. And then we had the no stock, and it was good to hose off the tank.
How hot did it get in a tank in Vietnam?
In the daytime, if we had a water can and we have a jerry can inside, it would almost boil. I mean, it got hot down there, and everybody rode on top till the shooting started.
Yeah.
But at any rate, and if you don't mind, that was all the better. But I remember before I had map case, I had my mom send me go to the bookstore and buy a map case for me, those rubberized things.
Mm-hmm.
When you fire the main gun, the concussion would shred the maps. So what I do is I'd aim the main gun, drop down into the cupola, put my head up against the cupola ring, fire the weapon, and come back up again, because I wasn't going to sit up there and get that blast in my face, you know. So it was a nasty weapon. And the gunfire, when I first got to Vietnam, they sent us over to the 196th Light Infantry Brigade for a 1 week course on Vietnam. We fire an AK, an RPG. They had a Chu Hoi, that's a guy who surrenders and comes on the side of the ARVNs, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. And these guys, the Chu Hoi would demonstrate how they come up through the wire, weave their way through it, and then they get there and they throw a hand grenade, an inert grenade at you and stuff. And they take you on a helicopter ride to give you a feel for the area you're going to be going to. It was pretty inclusive. But then I flew up to Hell 29er, just north of Tam Key, where our squadron headquarters was. And I hadn't been there for more than 2 hours when I was assigned to the 3 shop, when there was an action up north of us. We had a troop and a platoon in contact. And the 3 wanted to move another troop up, which is about 250 guys. And there was supposedly a roadblock at a bridge, and he wants to go up and check it out. And so I get in the back of his Jeep, and he hands me an M16. You know how to use this? Yes, sir. So I pull my 45 out, which I didn't know it, but it was illegal to do that inside a perimeter. And jacked around the chamber, put it in the holster, kabam! The damn thing goes off. And to this day, I don't know how it went off. And in Georgia, we took our shotguns to school, left them in the lockers, and hunted birds on the way home. No one thought about killing people or anything. And I thought I knew everything there was to know about guns, and went through that weapons course. But anyway, I got a letter of reprimand, and I still was a second lieutenant. And they purposely held my promotion, which was backdated, of course, for 2 weeks, just to screw with me. And the chaplain told me that story later at one of our reunions. He was the one who recommended they do all that stuff just to
teach you a little something.
Keep me on track. Now, you get something like that happens. No one's going to talk about it, except, well, the lieutenants are. In fact, there was a West Point lieutenant artillery type forward observer who gave me shit anytime I got a chance. And he was an E troop. And one day they left the perimeter and they were climbing up a hill. We heard some gunfire. And all of a sudden this vehicle's hauling ass back down. And this guy had shot himself in the leg. He'd pulled his gun out and accidentally shot himself in the leg. It was not a good wound either. They were carrying him to the helicopter, and I'm looking at him, and I mean, I didn't say anything.
You didn't have to.
But I mean, the look on his face is he was a career officer, and that's it. You're done. And you're not going to stay. They're not going to allow that. Now, in my case, with a letter of reprimand, I figure I'm in the same boat he's in. I wasn't too worried. I mean, it's a long ways off, but.
So you have the round that goes off, but you guys are moving to.
Oh, yeah. So the round goes off, and all of a sudden this gun smoke comes up off of me, and they're looking around. They see it's me. So I told the sir, I don't know how to use this. You can use the M16. It was embarrassing, I'll tell you.
But did you guys get in contact?
No, we got up there. There's nothing going on.
But it could have been your first 2 hours.
Yeah, and then I remember on the letter it says, I disobeyed the direct orders of the squadron commander not to load your weapon and put it around the chamber. Now, I was only there for 2 hours. I hadn't read anything.
You didn't even know where the bathroom was.
I'm not going to say anything, but that's what it said. But it did say at the bottom that it would be dismissed if I didn't screw up anymore when the squadron commander leaves, which happened. So that was good. But I showed up at the company commander. This is in November, mid-October to November. And I get assigned this company, and this guy, I mean, all the company commanders knew that I screwed up. So he viewed me as a screw up. Obviously, I don't blame him. I screwed up. So he never said anything about it, but he would always put me in the front, in the lead, and he'd stop me, show me within 25 meters where we're in the map. How would you call artillery on that field? I'm the radio. Call artillery. Give or airstrikes, or there's a little different ways to do that. And so then, or when was the last time you had the 12 volt batteries cleaned? I didn't even know where the damn batteries were. They're underneath the turret ring. I found out real quick. And so I knew I was going to get a bad OER from the guy. I'd already gotten one OER at Bragg, which was a good OER, but
so he was being tough on you, not to teach you, but just.
Well, I learned a lot from him.
It sounds like it. I mean, those are things that are probably a pain in the ass for him to do, but
no, he was
probably useful.
He was a professional baseball player.
Wow.
I think he injured his shoulder and he joined the Army, young kid, and he went from baseball in college to a couple of years in the pros, and then he just went in the Army. Or maybe we had ROTC and got a deferment. He wasn't the kind of guy who wanted to talk personal stuff with me.
Okay.
He liked the third platoon leader a lot, who now is a good friend of mine. At the time, I just viewed him as a kiss ass, but that's a different story. He's a great guy. He went on. He went into SOG later. We can talk about that later too, because I can tell you about what he's told me. But
for sure. Well. So that company you're talking about and this company commander, that's when you become a line platoon leader?
I'm a line platoon leader.
Right.
And so we were doing the biggest missions we were doing while we were in base camp. And we were in base camp for, I guess, 4 weeks, maybe 3.5 weeks. We ran night missions, night road convoys. And it was about 60 clicks up to a Long Bend post where these convoys would go and get their pickup stuff, whatever they're doing. They're 5 tons primarily, some deuce and halves. Okay. And they'd roll down that road. They have to wear these kidney belts because they were even the ACAV guys sometimes had to wear kidney belts. They were rough riding, but the tanks, combat loaded, 54 tons probably. We just kind of float along,
Okay.
But easy ride. But that's where we figured out that they take they take the what do they call them, the governors off the tanks when you're in the combat zone. I'm sure that's what HR did with his guys.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we could go buy these trucks. They told us they were on 50. Our speedometers went to 35, but we'd go buy the trucks. So if you threw a track, we call them shoes. If you throw a shoe, you'd be dead. But our loaders, our drivers' primary function when we stopped, no matter how short a period you stopped, we get out and tighten track blocks.
Each time.
All the time. You always, it's like in a helicopter,
Yeah.
You're doing stuff that it's life or death, and you don't want to have something happen when you need it not to happen.
So your first kind of month there is running these night convoys. I'm assuming no night vision at all. You're just...
No, the only night vision capabilities I have was starlight, but they don't work too well when you're running 50 miles an hour. But we would take one light and tape it over, so you one light on, and then the vehicle behind would do the opposite. So you would throw off a gunner's ability to, their depth perception.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that, and then we had these Xeons, 2 million kilowatt power Xeons up on the gun tube. And the
Is
Xeon
that just a high-powered
light.
light?
Oh
Okay.
man, that thing was light.
Xeon. All right.
In fact, if you forgot to turn the engine on, you hit the Xeon, you blew out all 12-volt batteries just like that. You had to be careful. And he had IR capabilities, infrared capabilities.
Okay.
But you had to have the engine running. You know, the A2s, the gasoline tanks, had little Joes, had a little generator back there. You could crank that little Joe up and run it at night, and you could still run your Xeon.
So when you're running this, you've got a very bright light on.
The lead vehicle.
Yeah, and then you're alternating kind of another light.
With the
either side.
headlights. Yeah,
Headlights on the vehicles behind.
So yeah, so the Xeon he's back and forth on the road, just checking things out, and you're going right by these guys' hooches. I mean, I feel sorry for them. Here they are; they have a candle lit, and the tanks go by, and they have a dust signature. You're turning black with dust. You're just full of dust.
Oh.
And I mean, I could never be the lead vehicle because platoon leader always about second vehicle.
Okay. Which means you're getting hit with all the dust.
Yeah, and
lead vehicle's probably clean.
And we didn't have ear or eye protection in those days. The Army didn't do that. So, and the gunfire hurt my ears. So I went to the C-rats, we call them, took out the cigarettes and cut off the ones that had the little, I guess you'd call it, but
a filter?
Like a filter, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cut them off and used them, put them in my ears. And then had the CV helmet, the radio helmet, which had better ballistics than the steel pod, too.
Mm-hmm.
It would give you extra protection. I think I got through Vietnam without any real ear problems.
Which is pretty remarkable, given what you were talking about, firing the main gun.
Yeah.
When you're running those routes, I don't know if you remember it all, but maybe the first night you're going out and doing that, I mean, you've got bright lights on, you're going 50, 60 miles an hour. What was it feeling like that first time you're outside the wire and executing that?
The fear thing, I think there's the kind of fear you got when you're in the principal's office back in high school or grammar school, which I was well aware of that. Had that problem.
Familiar.
So that it's kind of a steady fear that's kind of background fear. And then you get into a firefight and it's all adrenaline, no fear. You haven't got time to be afraid because you got to do what you have to do. And then after the fight, and you start thinking about it, that's when you really get scared, Jesus Christ, what happened, And so I'm sure running those things at night, it's not adrenaline flowing, but I mean, you're busy watching everything, eyes on everything, anything that looks different. And at night, you're not seeing a whole lot.
Yeah.
But so no, I don't know. It was a pain in the ass mission. And so you run with a convoy one night, and then you outpost the road halfway up one night, and then you're a reaction force back at base camp one night. And those guys got to sleep because we never got into any contact during those missions.
That's amazing. I guess it's just not worth the
tanks were pretty new in Vietnam. They didn't get there till probably early '67, late '60s. So the Vietnamese were adjusting. The North Vietnamese and the VC were adjusting to them,
feeling it out.
That's me talking. I'm sure that's.
Okay, so you run that for a period of time, and then your mission set changes.
Well, there was one interesting thing that happened
Yeah.
on that road run. When we were pulling, we were on one of the halfway up the roads mission. We were outposting, and typically all we do in an outpost is you eat some chow, some sea rations, and that's where you learned about sea ration roulette. That's where you play cards, you figure out how to shake for whatever you want. The best, in my opinion, I started with chicken noodle soup, but after 2 weeks I hated it. The worst thing was ham and lima beans, and you tried to avoid that. It never was good. Ham and beans and franks and different ones. And as long as you got some fruit, I think 80% of them had fruit or 70% of them had fruit. But anyway, we get to, and we'd walk tin cans down the road with the M60 machine gun or fast draw the 45s. So you can hit tin cans first. Try to get proficiency up on the weapons when you're hanging out. And this one day we pulled in, there was an Arvin Cav unit parked there. So I went up to the lieutenant who was their advisor and said, hey, we've been assigned this position. It's set up for we got artillery checkpoints here. You can't stay here. He said, no, well, no big deal. Well, if you let us finish our chow, we'll head out. I said, yeah, no problem. So they finished their nuke bomb and rice and whatever they're eating, and they headed out. Well, the next morning, and we always secured one vehicle so no one would get on and steal stuff. But the next morning, we head down back to Swan Lock, which is the big town before you turn right and go down to Black Horse. And he runs out. That's where they were stationed. Gives us one of these deals, right? He says, we're missing some weapons. Do you have any extra weapons on board? I said, well, what kind of weapons? He said, we have some 38s and pistols and a couple of BARs and a Thompson submachine gun. I checked with my platoon sergeant. He says, I don't know anything about that. So we'll keep our eyes open. So then we headed out for Loch Ninh or Ben Cat on a mission. In the mission, we go up, have to go through Long Ben, and Long Ben and Ben Cat are kind of next to each other, but Ben Cat's set back. There's an airfield there. But on the way up, there's a car wash. So you're thinking, why is there a car wash on a dirt road? And there's 2 MP Jeeps parked there. Well, a car wash, it's a house of prostitution. That's what it is. Okay. Steve job on a blowback, whatever.
Yeah.
Doing, And so they had these two M60 machine guns, pedestal mounted with chains over them. And each Jeep had a brand new A&BRC 47 radio on it with chains over them. And I'm looking down, and I could see the 47s, and I had one on order. I'm operating off 2 PRC 25s, which is a total pain in the ass. So we keep on going. Get up to Phuc Vinh, where we stayed the night. And then my platoon sergeant came up and said, we got a new radio for you. Well, they took both the M60s and both the radios because we had the keys to the keys, the bolt cutters. And I'm not sure what those MPs told their boss when they got back to, and what are they going to do? I mean, when we convoy, no one gets in between vehicles. I mean, a Lambretta pushes up, will put the gun tube on them and just push them out of the way with a gun tube. So they would not get close. We maintain vehicle discipline. We had reasons for doing that because we weren't going fast. We were going like 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. So we get up to Phuc Vinh, and that's when I start seeing 45 Thompson and 38s and these different BARs and stuff.
From your unit? In
my unit, yeah. But anyway, we get up there and we have a mission to escort the 2nd Brigade of the 101st Airborne in country. So the 1st Brigade had been there for a couple of years, but the 2nd, 3rd Brigade were just coming in. 3rd Brigade came in maybe a month later. But so what we did, the regiment had the mission of outposting this road between Phuc Vinh and Ben Cat. Ben Cat was on Highway 13, and then that's where we started, and then go down to Phuc Vinh. Halfway down, there's a place called Claymore Corners, because there was a Viet Cong operating in the area, and they had these homemade mortars like a big pizza plate. I mean, bigger than a pizza plate. Mm-hmm. They strap them to trees. They could be either command detonated, most were command detonated, or they could be pressure detonated. Mm-hmm. And so the first day, we put the sweep teams out. We had each troop had a segment, and then the next squadron, they'd do the whole road. Well, the first day, everything was smooth, no mines. The next day, a Claymore took our sweep team off the road, killed 2 guys immediately, lost their legs and bled out within seconds. And then 3 guys were seriously wounded and had to be medevaced, dusted off. So,
is this your platoon?
No, it was in one of the troops. I was with E Troop at the time, but that was F Troop. Okay. But that didn't help morale too much. And so then we expanded the width so we could put vehicles on the side of the road and protect the sweep teams. And then one time we took a left turn off the road. I ran over a mine, but didn't detonate it. The reason I know I ran over it is because it was a command detonated one, and didn't want to detonate it on a tank because they knew it wouldn't do too much damage. Mm-hmm. And there was an ACAF behind me, and it put it up. It was a 500-pound bomb, and it put the thing up in the air, and he landed upside down, killed. I'm going to say 2 guys. It could have been 3. I don't know. I'll send you that picture too. One of my tank commander in my 1-3 vehicle was they were getting the ammunition on it was burning off, and he pulled up and put a chain on it, a hook, and righted it, make sure no one was inside. Obviously, they wouldn't have made it anyway. It was just a nasty situation.
The folks inside presumably died on impact, or no?
Or they blew off. The guys that were wounded were blown off. The driver I know died for sure, and I think the track commander had the cupola come down on him. And I don't know if he lived or not. I think he was alive when they left.
When you're talking about some of these night raids you're doing, could you take us through one of those? What that would look like?
What a ambush patrol?
Yeah.
So whenever you pull into a night defensive position, and we had to make our night defensive, we stayed there one night, and then you C4 to knock. You had to clear it out with maybe C4. You knock trees down, or maybe you knock them down with tanks. What are you going to do? But you clear out. If it's not cleared out already, you clear out an area out. Get your concertina wire out. I always, as first platoon, I'd start the process by going due north and establishing the 360 part of the night defensive position. Then I'd go down to 4 o'clock. Another platoon would go to 4 to 8, and 8 to 12 o'clock, and that process took place probably in 2 minutes. Yeah. And then we had to put three listening posts, LPs out. They didn't have all the high-tech stuff they have now. So you figure out where they would go out. And they could go, based on the terrain, it could be 25 meters, it could be 50 meters. And one ambush patrol would go out, and we'd figure out that location. And my responsibility would be to find the locations, coordinate with the platoon leaders, and this all took place very rapidly. Mm-hmm. Then an ambush patrol was typically five guys. And it was usually an NCO.
Doing what?
They'd find a place that would be a logical place if there was intruders to come looking at the NDP, and then they'd ambush them on the way in. And so it was 1/3 alert on ambush patrol. It was 1/4 alert on the NDP. So they had to keep a higher alert level. And then they'd have to give sit reps, situation reports, mm-hmm. every 15 minutes. The first one I went on, they lobbed an RPG on us. I don't think anyone got hit, but that was the frustrating part about it. Sometimes you didn't see them, but then we did have ambushes, and we did catch guys.
Can you take us through maybe the first time you were in contact?
First time I was in contact was on the 6th of January, 1968.
You remember the day?
I do.
Okay. Yeah.
So we spent Christmas in Loch Ninh right after that big shootout they had there. We weren't involved in that. And we missed our Christmas dinner. They bring Mermite cans in with hot food, right? And it's a good meal, turkey and all that stuff. But anyway, it was a sea ration meal for us. But we went back down to a place called Alternate Route 17. It went into the Cambodian border. And our mission was there was a lot of troop movement coming across the border at that point, and we were going to go down and see if we can catch some of those guys. And so we were going to get up. We were going to leave at 0600 hours on the 6th of January. So on the 5th of January, my mission was to recon that road a little bit, which we did. And then came back in, we were getting a new company commander. And the old guy, who didn't like me, was leaving. Okay. I didn't know the new guy. He was the S4 before. He'd been there for 6 months, and now he was going to get his command time. Mm-hmm. And so they invited each of the platoon leaders into the back end of this command vehicle. It's an APC with a 30-50 caliber and ACAV. They had a little tent on the command vehicles. They put a little tent out, and you sit inside, and the red lights on inside. Mm-hmm. I was the last guy to go in. It was like 10:30 at night, and you're going to get your operations order and plus meet the new guy.
Wow!
And at 10:30 at night, I had to go back and brief my sergeants. That's how things always worked, So we get in there, and I was introduced to a new guy. We chit-chatted for maybe 15 seconds, and then I got the mission. And I'm going to be lead course, I'm going to be leading the squadron on this road into the Cambodian border. I had no problem reading maps. I was always pretty good at map reading. And I made sure I always made sure we hit the LP on time. But at any rate, I leave that track after that meeting, fully intending to go straight to my platoon. And they had all these trees blown down, and you couldn't use flashlights, no cigarette smoking or anything.
Mm-hmm.
At the red lights, and you're sitting there with a red
Yeah.
light. You know how those things work, right?
Yep.
Not. And anyway, I ended up right back to the other side of the track, and this was not planned, but I could hear my company commander telling the new company commander, "You got to get rid of that guy, Hillhouse. He's a liability, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Oh, my God,
Wow.
I'm in trouble now, you know." So anyway, the next morning, get the LD online, night of departure, and started heading down the road. The lead vehicle immediately calls me and says, "There's Ho Chi Minh sandal tracks all over this vehicle, and they weren't here yesterday."
On the vehicle.
On the trail.
Okay.
On the trail. It was kind of, sandy, rain type. We operated mostly in rainforest. It could be thick, but the real jungle was up near water, near creeks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really nasty to get through. But at any rate, I called back to the new company commander. I said, looks like there's been movement in front of us. Can we have permission to recon by fire? You know what that is, right?
Could you describe for people what
Yeah.
that would be?
So, you just 50 caliber is our best recon weapon. You try to draw fire, they make the bad guys think you've seen them and you can see them, and you shoot, and they shoot back, and then you've identified where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So he called back. He called the squadron, and the squadron commander said, "No, we don't want to really let everybody know we're coming." And we're sitting there thinking, "What is he talking about? These tanks. You can hear them a mile away."
Yeah.
So at any rate, okay. So we start moving forward, and all of a sudden, the lead vehicle got hit with 2 RPG teams, on both sides. One guy killed, and 2 guys wounded. The driver was okay. So we remanned that vehicle, put sand and stuff on the blood, put 3 people on it, took a person off each of the other vehicles except mine. I still had 4 guys. And so at that point, I knew we were going to get hit again. So I came on the command, on the platoon push, and told my guys that don't wait for me to give the friggin' order. When you see the lead vehicle, which was Sergeant Creel's tank, when you see the lead vehicle get engaged, start shooting. And the light group will go left, I'll go right, and we'll see if we can flank them, which is what we were taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, lead vehicle gets hit, but the tank commander has an M14 up on top, and he's firing down at these guys. And we immediately went into a flanking move and started rolling their flank. And it was then that, I guess the best way to describe it was, if you take a baseball bat and hit a bee's nest, that's what happened. They were everywhere. They were all over, and we were under heavy fire.
Nice.
Immediately, F Troop came up behind us and deployed infantry guys, and we were engaging bunkers. At one point, my gunner, a guy named Ron Shared, I see at the Creo, I see him at the reunions we go to. Great guys. And he knew more about tanks than I'll ever know. He went in the Army out of high school. He graduated the same year I did, 1962, from high school. And he could take a tank apart and put it back together. And he could have qualified as a tank commander anytime he wanted to. I think he commanded tanks back in wherever he was in peacetime in the U.S. But he says, "There's a bunker right next to us." And before I could say anything, he jumps off the tank, jumps in the bunker, kills 4 guys, jumps back on the tank, and he had just that 5-shot pistol with him. I said, "What would you have done if there had been 5 or 6 guys in there?" "I took my knife with me." That's the aggressiveness that we were exposed to. So in that fight, whenever you get in an ambush, there's a lot of cordite in the air. Sometimes you can't see very far. And it's a rusty, caustic smell, and then there's that coppery smell that gets mixed in. That's the smell of blood. And then ultimately over there, the smell of death would get in pretty quick because the bodies would bloat within an hour. And this was like a 6-hour shootout.
Wow.
So, I mean, so when I think ambush, that's what comes to
Yeah.
your smell. I mean, immediately, fortunately, those smells don't really exist here except for maybe a dead rat in your bushes. That's the same smell. That's the dead smell you get. And bodies really kick that off. And fortunately, they weren't U.S. bodies for the most part. But at any rate, after that, we called airstrikes after about 2 hours. And then I went back in. I was given the mission to go back in and check to see if everything's dead or if there's any more action to take place or
After the airstrikes.
And there wasn't. It was pretty quiet. But we did have a Medal of Honor recipient as a result of that shootout. And that was interesting to me because, I saw this guy because I was up in my cupola and I could see this guy going into bunkers. And he was an F troop right behind me. And the F troop platoon leader was Ed Jones, a guy who I went through ROTC with and went through AOB with.
Wow.
And he's on the ground. And a lot of guys, when they write a Medal of Honor, I mean, they interview a lot of guys. And it's not just 10 minutes. I mean, they sit you down and describe roughly what time it was, what did he do, what did you see? And at one point, I didn't see him. I guess, I don't know if if a grenade got him or if somebody shot him. But last time I saw him, he was laying behind my tank with a poncho over him.
So he was killed during this.
Posthumous, yeah. Oh. But he certainly deserved it. He did. I mean, he was saving lives. He pulled one guy away from a grenade. He didn't fall on it. He had to fall on it, but he pulled him on the ground. They both went down before the thing went off. He was doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, he was just a machine in action. So that was the first contact.
That's a serious first contact, a 6-hour gunfight.
It was
maneuvering, and I'm trying to. So I went to Vietnam with my dad and my brothers a few years back, and I'm just trying to envision like how much room you'd have to maneuver tanks. Like on the road that you're talking about, was it just clear vegetation to the sides?
Yeah, a little bit because it was near the main road, Route 13. But usually there's not much room to maneuver. We had enough room to maneuver to flank.
Yeah.
But it didn't do us too much good because they came out of every. And we found out later what had happened was we were on a stand down. And the stand down, the infantry guys, they go out for 2 weeks, go into base camp for a week or two, and then that's called a stand down. We go out and spend 6 months in the field. I mean, we went out in December and didn't get back to base camp till May, 1st of May.
You're just sleeping out. You're not sleeping at a fob or a base of any.
No, you make your own NDPs as you go along, and so we, like at night, sometimes I crawl up underneath the tank in case mortar rounds come. If there's out in the jungle, you didn't usually get mortar rounds because they weren't moving in those areas too much. So we had poncho liners. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a light blanket, and you get cold at night. Sleeping on the ground every night, and we had one snake. We call them all 2-step because you have about 2 steps. They were all vipers.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the fun part about being out in the bush for long periods of time. And then sanitation was tough because
that's got to be.
If there's a creek, we jump into it just to wash off, your uniforms got really bad, and they come in with a helicopter, bring in uniforms, no rank on them, no names, and they DX your uniform. So pretty soon you don't wear any rank because you're just wearing DX uniforms, and then they get beat up. They come in with a helicopter. We never had a shower unit show up.
No.
But we take those canvas bags that you can fold up, had a handle on them. We punched holes in the bottom, put them on the gun tube, fill them up with a 5-gallon can, raise the gun tube up, and you have about a minute to wash off, and that's your shower.
This must have smelled so bad.
everybody did, so you got used to it, I guess.
How on that first contact that you talked about, the lead vehicle gets hit, and you said there's some casualties or deaths. That's your platoon
Yeah,
that's getting hit.
yeah.
What's your immediate feeling at that time? Like, you know these guys. I mean,
I've been with the platoon since November, and we'd had a situation occur in December when we were stationed with F Troop, and they had a hardcore troop commander, West Pointer. No, he wasn't a West Pointer, but he was a hardcore guy, big guy, football player, probably a tackle or something in college, and could loud voice and didn't take shit off anybody. And he became a 4-star at the end of his career.
jeez.
And he was the kind of guy you didn't want to go wrong way with him. And we were set up in a perimeter, and somebody was sending out the LPs, and somebody fired, and they felt it was my platoon that fired a weapon out when the LPs were going out. And at any rate, the platoon sergeant said, no, none of our guys fired. So I went in, and he called me back, and he said, Hillhouse, your platoon took shots at one of the LPs. What do you have to say about that? I said, didn't happen. It wasn't my guys. And he's in my face. And I was getting a little bit pissed because he's in my face, and my platoon sergeant told me it didn't happen. So I was back at him. I say, hey, it didn't happen. I'm not going to be talking to anybody about it. Go to someone else's platoon, But anyway, I get back to my platoon, and I told the platoon sergeant what happened, and he said, oh, well, it really did happen, but I knew that guy would court martial him, and I just, he said,
Oh, it did happen.
It did happen. But after that, they knew I was there on their side. So there was some positive things that happened, but I wasn't going to let them tell me shit in the future.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear that kind of stuff. So the platoon sergeant, I'm pretty sure he was a good guy. Homer Medley and was his name. He was due to retire right after his tour. He was 38 years old, had a young family, and he was going to retire to his home in McMinnville, Tennessee. Unfortunately, he took a bullet right through his heart, and he was dead before he hit the bottom of the cupola of the tank.
On that first contact you had?
No, it was later on. He actually had him December to May. I had him for close to 6 months. I mean, he was like a brother.
Wow.
He was a great guy. He was wounded a couple of times, had to go in. So he was just a great guy. That really got to me when that happened. Yeah, I got to know the guys, and then pretty soon, when we got down to the Triangle, man, that was just.
When does that happen?
Well, first of all, when we're up at Loch Ninh, doing the screening missions, we were on the radio. We were in a stand down position again. We were going to get our first warm meal. So I was doing clover leaves. There were 2 platoons doing clover leaves. That's when you take a platoon out and come back and check out areas. And I was calling artillery on a wood line. I took a picture of this. And what I do, I stood up and I saw the point of impact, snapped the picture, got down, and then some metal actually bounced off our tank, and it was like 400 yards away. The bursting radius on those 155s were unbelievable. I was just curious to see if I get a picture. I got it right at the moment of impact.
Wow.
and it hit the tank within seconds after that. Just a couple of pieces did. And the M109 155 mobile artillery it's always nice to have your own artillery.
Yeah.
Because when you come back to your NDP and they screwed up, and they know they're going to be talked to.
They know it's you. Yeah.
So we never had problems. I mean, they could be going down a road, get a fire mission, stop, get their stakes out, shoot an azimuth, and have rounds on target in 2.5 minutes.
Maybe is it a good time to talk about the May 5th experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cam A was a small village about 4 clicks south of Black Horse, and we had a mission. Black Horse had a mission to, if there was an issue down there, to act as a reaction force. So whatever squadron, there was always one squadron at Black Horse, and it was our turn in there. And I was sent down there to do a reconnaissance mission on 3rd of May. So I went down with my platoon, 3 vehicles. Didn't take my platoon sergeant with him because he was busy in the motor pool getting stuff squared away. And I drove around down there to the rubber, different places. There was an airfield, a grass runway for could probably handle, will definitely handle helicopters, but like a de Havilland Beaver, that kind of plane, and I rode into the village. So I'd been down there, and then on the 5th of May, about 4:30 in the morning, I was awakened by the company clerk. He said, "Sir, heavy contact down at Cam A. We got to form up the company." And the old man stood down at squadron headquarters getting the lowdown and getting our mission. And we were supposed to be lead. The tanks usually always lead. But for some reason, that got screwed up, and E Troop led going down there. So at any rate, we saddled up, went to the motor pool. Now, the part I hadn't talked about yet is because our tanks were all basically shot up in the triangle. We got new tanks 6 days before this action. And they were A2s, which is a gasoline burner. They were out of A3s. So they got these out of storage and redid the radios on them. We had the 30 caliber M37 machine gun, not our M73 machine guns. They had the radio. We never got the radios to really work. It was just a different kind of vehicle, and it was temperamental to start them up in the morning. And it got cold at night, so if it was 110 in the daytime, it dropped to 80 at night. That swing in temperature you could feel the cold. I can remember climbing up the way you got on a tank. Typically, was the rear sprocket up on the back deck, or you could come up through the front slope too. But that was usually the driver got up that way, and then the rest of us get up on the back deck. And I can remember getting up there and thinking, this is not going to be a good day. I just feel something was going to happen.
Really?
I don't know why that was, but I just sensed it. And so we got 4 of our tanks cranked up. Platoon sergeant's tank wouldn't start up. So he grabbed a hold of the lead tank, kicked a guy off, and took to get the tank commander, made him the gunner, and kicked the gunner off. It's a loader. It's a shit job.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we start heading down to Cam A. Well,
you're moving quick, it sounds like, because there's contact.
Still dark. Yeah, it's still dark. So this is, and we're down at latitude is probably 15 latitude, 14 latitude where we are. 17 up on the border between North Vietnam, South Vietnam. So it stays pretty light down there. I mean, you can see the Southern Cross in certain aspects, sometimes, not always, but you can always see the North Star though, which we used at night. Okay. So at any rate, we're heading down, and Sergeant Charette, who was the first platoon, they stuck him in front of E Troop with 2 tanks, and he hits a mine going down there. He's that young guy that was my gunner. Now he's a tank commander on 5.5, and the tank's off the road, and he's sitting there looking up, and I went by, and I could just see he was pissed. He was a guy who wanted to be in the fight. Didn't matter where the fight was, he wanted to be there. I still give him a bad time about that. He was just sitting there.
And you got to just keep going.
Oh, yeah.
You can't wait for.
No. He's there waiting for a recovery vehicle, M88, to show up. So they had to provide their own security. Nobody was hurt in the mine explosion. Okay. The driver had his hats battened down. Everybody learned from that lesson early from December. But at any rate, we get down there. E Troop's in front of us. We're sitting on this road going into the village, and the airfield's on the right side, and the right side of the airfield is all this rubber. In fact, the whole village is surrounded by rubber plantation, except for the runway and the village. And the Special Forces unit is occupying the high ground inside the village, and that's really the reason why we were going to go down there. They were holding their own because they're different caliber of soldiers. They don't use Arvins. They use the Montagnards and guys who are real fighters. Yeah. And so they were doing okay, but when we rolled up, there was no gunfire. Nothing was coming from the town. And then there was 2 Arvin guards standing there at the gate. So the new platoon leader for E Troop, who's the second track back, gets off his vehicle and starts walking up. and these guys come down with their AKs. And this guy was, even though he was new in country, smart enough to hit the ground. And the guy on the 50 in the lead ACAB he was ready. He opened up on him. And that started the contact.
So this is the enemy dressed up.
Yeah.
Like
NVA.
Wow.
These were NVA, not Viet Cong. And so then the mortars started coming in. Mortar rounds were going up and down the line. And they didn't have a spot on us initially. And the 3 was up in the air in a helicopter, and he spots the location. Now it's starting to get light. We get the order to go over and take out that mortar range. Our company does, which isn't very big. We have my 4 vehicles and company commanders behind them, and then there are a couple more tanks behind the company commander. I think we had a total of 11 down there, 11 or 12. But at any rate, we had start heading over. Sergeant Nicholson's in the lead, the new platoon sergeant. That guy was in World War II in Korea. He was just another wild man.
Jeez.
He's been in country for 9 months at this point. And I didn't know the guys in 3rd Platoon, really. They're all new. I mean, they're new to me.
Yeah.
So I'm on the 2nd tank, and I can't get a hold of Nicholson. I was trying to tell him to slow down. We're going about 25 miles an hour. Hit this road, and there's a ditch there on the right side that wasn't there during my recon. And all of a sudden, I see these flashes going off. First thing I thought in my mind was they're APs, anti-personnel mines, which are small. You could drop those in the back, a box of in the back of the Jeep, and you'd be picking them up for the next week or 2. And when we were doing screening missions, we'd put them on the trails, and the North Vietnamese would be riding their bicycles down there, and all of a sudden hit a mine and blow the front wheel off. And everybody's going crazy, wishing they could catch us. But at any rate,
is that what was going off, detonating next?
No, those are RPGs. I don't know why I thought they were. I don't know why I thought that. It took me a second or 2 to figure out. When this guy jumped up out of the foxhole and shot at my tank, I knew they were RPGs. But we got hit 4 times, my tank. But the lead vehicle got hit 16 times.
Wow.
I mean, they wanted to catch us, stop us. Just like in the 6th January, I didn't mention this, but there was a general officer headquarters in that component, and they were protecting their general officer as they were pulling out. And they were going to attack our perimeter around 6 o'clock because they'd been watching us, and we were on a stand down, so we were screwing off, and we weren't up till 7 o'clock probably. We had everybody out, but at any rate, it took them totally off guard. But same here. They had a general officer we found out later in their headquarters, which were located with the mortars. So lead vehicle, he's gone now. The driver was killed on the initial volley, and the tank kept going. We found him later. I'll tell you that in a minute. But then I thought we were going to be overrun. They were all around. And this is where the grenades came into play, because I carried a Claymore bag, which you can put about 12 in. And there was a pull-out drawer under the radios, and my loader was feeding me grenades. And I was getting airburst on some of them. I was throwing them into the ditch. So I threw maybe, I don't know, definitely 12 out of the bag, and maybe another 4 or 5 out of the thing. And then I jumped down with my with an M16, and forgot to take the bag of magazines with me.
Oh.
So I was out of ammunition almost immediately. So I had 2 magazines, 2 stuck in the holster. So I had 6 magazines and 1 in the gun. So I had 7 magazines. And I laid on the ground, and these guys were popping up. They didn't see me, and I started shooting people.
Were you just on your own?
I was on my own because the tank had been hit and the guns weren't. Oh, that's the other thing. When we got hit, and I'll send you a picture of this too. Yeah. The RBG hit the gun shield, which is about 3 inches of homogeneous steel, exited the gun shield, went through that much oxygen and hit the turret right at the right spot, penetrated the turret, hit my gunner inside the vehicle, and created a spalled effect. I was wounded. I had metal fragmentation wounds in my legs, and hands, some different places. But you know what a Spald effect is? That's where metal from the inside starts bouncing around. And so I was ejected from the cupola. So
And the driver's dead, I have to assume.
no, he was not wounded. The loader was
Wow.
wounded, and I was wounded, and the gunner was really wounded. I think he made it. I'm not sure. I think he made it.
Wow.
But I was thrown off. I hit my back on the best bustle rack. I was seeing stars, and literally, I mean, I don't know how I did it. I just climbed right back up in the cupola, and I had a flash. What do they call it? A flash blindness in my right eye for a short period of time. That's my shooting eye too. If you're shooting a pistol or a rifle.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that it weakened the eye muscle a little bit, but I don't think it impacted my. I'm sure it didn't impact my vision. But at any rate, I had my goggles on because it was dust, and it blew my goggles off. And I don't know if you can see from here, but they did a great job. It wasn't plastic surgery; they knew how to do it.
Really?
There in my face.
Wow.
But, I grabbed the 50 caliber when it came back in, and the butterflies kind of flew off of my hand. It wasn't working. A round hit it.
Oh.
So the guns there was electrical fire. Couldn't rotate move the turret, or the guns couldn't shoot. That's when I jumped off. I threw the grenades and jumped off the vehicle. I left that part out. And then a corporal from F Troop jumps on top of the ditch, and he's shooting down, and he's out of ammunition, and then he gets hit right here. He spins
Right on his neck.
Yeah, on his neck.
Yeah.
Spins around into the ditch, and I ran over there, and he was in the ditch, and he pulled out a 38 special, a Magnum, I guess, but he got it from his dad. Had sent it to him. You know, weapons were easy in Vietnam. And he was shooting that. He just finished firing 6 shots with that, and then he grabbed an AK. So he was taking care of business down there. And then I got him out of the thing, and we crawled back, and there were more guys coming up in the ditch, and a M48 came up and gave me some covering fire. And I pulled back, and someone came up. The company commander's been wounded, and you need to get back there. So he was 3 or 4 tanks back, and I run back there, and he's definitely not going to be staying. He's going to get medevaced. And one of his guys was cut in half on the back deck, and his gunner his arm was just, he was holding on. His arm was literally hanging on. I understood they saved his arm, but thanks to our doctors. But then I took over the company commander's tank, and now the cordite's pretty thick, and there was a jerry can that had been wedged off of the bustle rack and wedged under the turret. I went back there real quick, trying to kick it loose. And all of a sudden, I sensed something going on my side, and there was a guy, left-figure soldier, trying to climb up on the back deck. He didn't see me. Cordite and stuff. I don't know why he didn't see me. I saw him. He had a stick grenade, anti-tank grenade in his left hand, and he had a Tokarev 7mm pistol in his right hand. And so I left my 45 on the main side. And so I look at him, he looks up at me, sees me, and I just sidekicked him as hard as he could. His gun goes off as he's flying back. And I think what happened is the round hit the bustle rack and came back and got me in the shoulder. So it wasn't the kind of wound that a normal gunshot would cause. It was just like a fragmentation wound. And the aftermath of that was, they told me in the evac hospital that I would probably the new shoulder would last for probably 20 years. And they did. It lasted for 30 years. And then the Stanford doctors, you get arthritis. And I could barely reach up to turn the channel on the radio, so it was time to do something. And
so when you kick this guy off of the tank, I mean, you're only a few feet from him. You've taken a round. He's on the ground.
Yeah, my loader gone. My loader gone. Like, we had a guy in the tank. We had 4 guys in that tank to get going. At one point in the firefight, there was a guy coming up from what I would call enemy country. And I fired him with my M16, was ready to pull the trigger, but it didn't feel right, so I didn't. I moved on to another target. And it was the chief. Any guy in town, you have an Indian in your company or platoon, they call him the chief, right? And he'd been wounded in the shoulder, and he was just making his way up. And I was talking to Sergeant Creel, one of my tank commanders, who in 1995, that's when the internet was alive and well, and he had gotten most of the platoon members together online so we could do online stuff. He said the same thing happened. I saw that guy coming up, and I almost shot him, but I didn't.
I got to imagine like that was just such a chaotic moment when you're kind of fighting for your life there. Was there I don't know, do you have this feeling like you're on the ground? Luckily, somebody comes up behind you and provides covering fire, but any feeling of this might be it for me? Maybe I'm not coming out of this?
No, you're too busy. I mean, you're you're just wired. I was concerned because if you get overrun, they can do a lot of damage. Here we were losing tanks. I checked on the records to see how many tanks were lost during the war. Over 350 tanks were lost in Vietnam. But tanks were so effective, and again, being self-contained, we didn't have to go to outside sources for airstrikes or for gunship strikes, I should say. First, during Tet was the first time we saw Cobras. And what I thought you'd probably know this, but they'd fly into a target, and then their tail would go up in the air like this, like a Cobra would, and then they pop back up again. Yeah. It was fun to watch those guys.
They had more maneuverability, I think, in some cases than we did. Like we'd come up on these pretty high bumps and a shallow approach angle, but we wouldn't pin up like that same way. Something that Ellen, so Ellen's name has come up here. Ellen is part of the Veteran Memorial Foundation.
Yeah, she's one of the keys to our success. She came to us from AT&T. She handled the Pacific for AT&T as a vice president.
Jeez.
I mean, talking about making money and doing the right things, and very accomplished woman.
So she asked me to ask you a question. She said, ask the general about a time he may have had to disobey orders. She said it may have been in the context of you going on a night op as opposed to one during the day.
Okay, yeah, I can remember that. We were opconned to a company in the 1st Division. It was the 1st to the 26th, I think. 1st to the 28th. There were 3 of them. 16th.
Before
26th.
or after May? Do you remember?
No, this would be up in the Iron Triangle. So it would be probably in February, March timeframe. And the company commander was a young guy. He was a captain, probably an OCS guy. He thought he was hot shit kind of guy,
It's dangerous.
But they have their everybody has a big operations type meeting every night, discuss the next days and the ambush patrols or whatever you're going to do. And they put an ambush patrol out in the rubber about 600 yards out because it looked like a good place for ambush. And it's not my unit. I'm not going to say anything, but to me, that was way too far.
Just too far you can't support.
Yeah, I can't support them. But he thought it was cool, and no one was saying anything, and I just, kept my mouth shut. And, for tanks to operate in a rubber plantation at night, you're just bait for RPGs. You can't maneuver. So at any rate, about 12 o'clock at night, this ambush patrol gets hit. I mean, these guys wounded. They're crying on the radio, come and get us. I mean, wow. They were in trouble. And so the company commander calls me into the the tent, and says, Hillhouse, saddle your platoon up and go get those guys. I said, no, sir, I'm not taking those tanks out there. He says, I'm giving you a direct order, and you can be court-martialed if you don't obey it, and I'll make sure of that. I said, that's not the tactics we're trained on. He said, go back to your platoon and gather them up. I said, yes, sir, I'll go back. So I went back, told my guys we're going to go get those guys on foot. Get your M16s out, get bandoliers we had bandoliers with magazines were filled up. And came back to the talk. I said, we're ready to go. He said, where are your tanks? I said, sir, I told you, I'm not taking the tanks. We'll go out and get them for you. If your infantry guys can't do it, we'll take care of it. He says, get the hell out of my sight. And they go out and get them, but
There's a couple questions I ask everybody. So the two that I always ask at the very end, one is, was there anything that you carried with you when you went to Vietnam, whether you had it in the tank, on your body, whatnot, that somebody had given you, a good luck charm, something that meant a lot to you, sentimental value?
no, nothing.
Nothing.
Just that gun I took with me, Walther PPK.
But you traded that, you said, right?
I didn't like it after I shot it. And they got this 5-shot pistol, which is, Charette still has that thing, so I'm sure he liked that.
Worked out for him.
Yeah. So I didn't really take anything with me that I can remember.
And-
I enjoy getting letters were big. And
Oh, it had to
my
be.
mom sent me letters once a week, and my fiance, then wife, sent letters. In fact, when a helicopter got shot down, bringing our mail, people were so out of, oh man.
Like, you'll take a few things, but taking the mail out is not.
That's not good.
That's just not acceptable.
Exactly.
And then the last question, just looking back at a lot of the pain. We talked about several people you lost and near-death experiences. I do like to ask folks, knowing what you know now, would you do it again?
Yeah, I would. Even though most of the guys in my platoon were drafted, they were all volunteers. Every one of them volunteered to go to Vietnam after they got in. They weren't slow. They were okay.
I wanted to be there, and it's combat arms. You were in the front, obviously, front lines.
Yeah, and they wanted to be in the combat arms. Just like a lot of guys in Congress right now are in the new wars. They went to Ranger School, airborne. They became officers. They fought in the wars.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the other thing we should just mention is your work with the Veterans Foundation and Memorial Fund.
Yeah, that's been a real nice thing for us, for veterans. We basically almost have it paid off, which is good. And we're moving into yellow ribbon type projects, which is for the veterans. And we had a world-class, Frank Morris was our artist. He's a great guy. He's an Air Force veteran, but he would fly out on his own many times. The Flame of Liberty, the centerpiece for the memorial, is based on the Flame of Liberty during the Statue of Liberty. And the veterans, the Soldier's Cross, which is a rifle with a bayonet and a helmet on top, a hasty grave marker in World War II in Korea, and now used ceremonially, is the centerpiece of the centerpiece. So if you take a look at it, and then we do have the paver program. We have a lot of people who have grandfathers and fathers, and a couple of really interesting pavers there. One guy was a World War II pilot, flew Wildcats, and was an ace.
Wow!
They developed that weave where they could get the Japanese in front of them, and then his son, one of our town residents, her brother flew helicopters in Vietnam, and when his plane was shot down over the jungle. And he thought about it many times before he was shot down what he would do. And what he did was he went in tail first. And instead of taking it the way they normally do, tail first, and none of the crew members were injured. But they had to fight their way out for 5 days or 3 days or something. So the pavers are next to each other.
That's
the
cool.
father and the son. So there's pavers like that. Different. There's a guy who's the last of the gunfighter, a guy named Bill Benson, who flew Navy Crusaders. And his wife lives in town still, a great gal, and this goes on and on.
This is a beautiful memorial that you all have built in the last 10 years, right? And
it's important for veterans to know when they come back from the wars that the town, in this case, we service veterans all over the county. It's placed in Los Gatos, and they've been super with us. Gave us the redwood grove there where we are, and been really nice to us, so we can't complain about the town. And they support us. Yeah, we get to do volley fires when we do plane taps, and we just call
it's
the police
great.
department.
Even the gala that I went to. It's for people listening who have heard our interview with AJ Pasciuti. I met him because of this wonderful fundraising event.
Great guy.
Got to hear him speak and brought him on the show. So it's an incredible community you've created here, and I know you have a strong leadership position there. I just hope people have a chance to check this out. I mean, feels like a small town outside of San Jose, but in Los Gatos, it's very it's just a it's an inspiring memorial
Yeah.
that y'all have pulled together.
Yeah, it's great stuff. We appreciate all your help and Owen's help
Yeah.
with his technology program.
That's
he's got
right.
Going.
That's right. We're going to have him working harder this summer, actually, once he gets out of school. So this is our 16-year-old who a lot of listeners will have heard me talk about because he's edited some of these videos in the past. But sir, thanks so much for the time. I hope we have a chance to do a round 2 at some point. This was a blast for me, and I just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, you bet. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed that combat story, talking a little bit more about tanks. And for those who heard the interview with Tim Gauthier, we've had a couple tankers on recently from obviously the Gulf War and now Vietnam. And it really is interesting how we employed these mechanized units the way that we did in these wars. But with that, I wanted to jump into a couple interesting comments. I really like these ones from the TJ Gauthier interview. And the first is from Goodwin Sooners 3520. And he says, "Keep them coming, Ryan. You never disappoint with the wide variation of amazing guests you meet with. You're illuminating so many areas of our American history that have little, and in some cases zero, firsthand accounts of what truly went down. More than that, you know how to bring each and every guest to life. My daughter's just nailed why it resonates so well with us. We feel like we're just sitting around the fire pit with the both of you, eavesdropping in on stories we weren't supposed to be privy to. Thanks again for making our Saturday morning drives outstanding. Boomer Sooner, Cam, Ari, and Zoe." That is so cool to hear. I would never have imagined in a million years there'd be somebody sitting there with their daughters listening to this. And I oftentimes feel like I'm not really supposed to be hearing some of these stories either. Just it's exactly why we do this, though, so we can get these out there. Thank you so much for listening and being dedicated listeners for so long. I really appreciate it. And then the next is from Doc Rowe, and he says, "OMG, yes. I asked for a tanker in the comments because no other military podcasts have had a tanker on from what I can find. You gave us a tanker literally the next episode. Thanks so much. This is why I effing love this podcast. What a beautiful notification to wake up to." Now, I really appreciate it, guys. It's been great having a couple armor officers on. I'm sure we'll get some more variety in here. And as always, people can take a look at our newsletter, combatstory.com/newsletter. Support us at patreon.com/combatstory. And I'm just so grateful for y'all sticking around with us, listening week in and week out. It means a lot to me, and it helps get some great stories out there for people who served. So with that, hope you have a great rest of your week or weekend. Stay safe, y'all.